One apology to Disa and you're off. No getting better acquainted. No reminiscing about the past, and absolutely no staying for dinner.
Understood.
Oh, this cannot be Elrond, can it?
I fear so, fair lady. I've been remiss in not visiting sooner. An oversight.
Welcome to the Mines of Moria.
And they call it a mine. A mine!
I brought the key to the wrong dwarven kingdom, but luckily they've rebuilt the secret entrance and I just so happened to recall the password to get in. I am gladdened to find it in its heyday here. Seeing it in a state of disrepair in the events of The Lord of the Rings was truly a sad moment, but Moria was once known for its fabled hospitality and roaring fires, malt beer, red meat off the bone. While Gimli makes no mention of wines in this statement, it's conceivable that Durin's folk would have enjoyed a hearty mulled beverage or two in their glorious caverns, and I appreciate the fact that the Rings of Power has given us a number of glimpses at Moria in its prime, although I have a sneaking suspicion they'll accelerate some of the events in the legendarium to show this kingdom's initial fall from grace. From Robert Tousley Anderson's Recipes from the World of Tolkien cookbook, think of Middle-earth and drinking, and inevitably flowing tankards of ale come to mind, probably enjoyed in one of the many hospitable inns of the Shire or Bree-land. But the many people of Tolkien's world consume a much wider range of beverages, both alcoholic and non-alcoholic, from the refreshing ent draughts of Fanghorn to the hot-spiced wines loved by the dwarves. Caves, even beautifully carved and decorated ones, can be rather cold. Of course, the dwarves of a kingdom like Moria, Khazad-dûm, would have made their cavernous realm comfortable with warm hearths, but still a warm, hearty drink would hardly go amiss after braving the blizzards of the Misty Mountains to reach one of its gates. Here we have two recipes that can be used to liven up even an average bottle of wine imported from the lands of men. The delicious smells of spices, fruit, and wine will fill the air when you make these decadent mulled drinks. For something a little different from the usual red mulled wine, try the white wine variation. These drinks are perfect for celebrations on a cold winter day. The first dwarven mulled wine we'll be preparing today called for an inexpensive red wine, and I just so happened to find a $6.99 bottle of Smoking Loon Cabernet Sauvignon. It should be hearty enough, and I find the naming convention fitting for our somewhat crazed, pipe-smoking short kings. Of course, the loon in question is actually of the bird variety. The dwarves are better known for their friendly relationship with ravens, but I'll take it. From the bottle, the unusual call of this rare, extraordinary bird beckons. Come fly away and discover the other side of wine. A little bit irreverent, very amusing, and always delectable with Smoking Loon. Our Cabernet Sauvignon is a classic style with vibrant aromas of boysenberry, blackberry jam, and that coveted spice note. The wine is rich with a velvety smoothness that requires an additional sip or two. Even the cork has a fun little anecdote written on it.
You knew that your night was just about to get a little better, now that the Smoking Loon has graced you with his presence.
That'll do. The red mulled wine of Moria is warming and cheering with an extra kick from some added brandy. This recipe serves 6 and takes 25 minutes of prep and cook time. To mull a red wine worthy of Khazad-dûm's fabled hospitality, you'll need 1 bottle of inexpensive red wine, 1 cup of clear apple juice, 1 cup of water, the juice of 1 orange and another orange, sliced, half a lemon, also sliced, 1 cinnamon stick, halved for some reason, 6 cloves, 2 bay leaves, 2/3 of a cup of superfine sugar, and 2.5 cups of brandy. While I've been on a cognac kick on this channel for recipes that call for brandy, I figured I'd branch out a bit and have selected this Saint Remy French VSOP brandy. Step 1. Pour the wine, apple juice, water, and orange juice into a large saucepan. Step 2. Add the sliced orange and lemon, the cinnamon stick, cloves, and bay leaves, then mix in the sugar and brandy. Step 3. Cover with the lid and simmer for at least 20 minutes until piping hot. The longer it simmers, the more the flavors will develop. Ladle into heat-proof glasses. And here it is, the red mulled wine of Moria. It's maintained a lot of the red wine's structure, and there's surprisingly not too much brandy booziness on the nose. In many other mulled wines that I've made that used some level of fortification, like the Hippocras for House of the Dragon, it has been a very distinct, in-your-face flavor, and that is not quite so present here, which I'm okay with. Although I did like the Hippocras. There's a good balance of the mulling spices. I can definitely pick up on the cloves on the nose. Not so much of the cinnamon sticks, which again, I'm not sure why the cinnamon stick had to be split in half, but oh well. See how she tastes.
Might we have a wee moment to mull it over?
That's a treat. The superfine sugar adds sweetness, but at the same time, it is a very smooth sweetness. It's not like syrupy. It kind of creates this velvety mouthfeel, which I'm very much a fan of. The cinnamon and orange definitely show up more on the palate. The lemon is not as present as I thought it might be. And I don't normally use fresh bay leaves, but I figured, what the heck, why not this time around? In a way that meant that it was a subtler influence. At the same time, lends this very round vegetal note, like nothing peppery or anything like broccoli or anything like that. It's definitely a round earthiness, I suppose is the best way I can describe it. I like it, and I think I want to use more fresh bay leaves in recipes in the future. The brandy does kind of say hello on the finish. Compared to many of the cognacs we've used in other recipes, it has a lighter profile than the others and isn't quite so spiced, which I think in a way also means that there's less barrel influence, so this is a lot less woodsy than a lot of the other cognacs that we've sampled here. You could probably very much change up the profile of this particular recipe with the specific brandy you choose. So definitely make sure you select one that you know you enjoy the flavors of, and that works well in the recipe. But the Smoking Loon was kind of a hit for a cheap red wine.
I like it a lot. There was a little bit of like tannin-iness, and like maybe a little bit of bitter aftertaste. Yeah, that's not very fun, but the first part is. That'll be such a little full-time treat.
Now that we've prepared the hearty red mulled wine of Moria, let's get eclectic and make the white mulled wine of Durin's folk. I am particularly excited about this one because anytime mulled wines come to mind, the immediate assumption is that they're red. It's certainly a more common treat due to the warming nature of most red wines, as seen in drinks like the medieval and Sauron mulled wines of Westeros in my video of wine recipes from A Song of Ice and Fire, and the Hippocras as previously mentioned, or even Sans spiced wine from Skyrim. But even those cookbooks contain recipes for mulled white wines like Mirish fire wine and Imperial mulled wine, and they are always more interesting to me because they're less common. The recipe just calls for a white wine, but I wanted to select something that pays homage to the land that we subconsciously associate with Middle-earth, as it is where the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit movies were filmed, New Zealand. As such, we have this bottle of Nobilo's 2023 Sauvignon Blanc from the wine-growing district of Marlborough. With 300 years of family winemaking tradition, each bottle of Nobilo is a promise of New Zealand winemaking at its finest. Our Sauvignon Blanc has distinct notes of fresh melon and citrus, a perfect match for your favorite salad, seafood, and poultry dishes, or, in our case, for a white mulled wine of Moria. From the World of Tolkien cookbook, spiced with runic, Eastern, flavors of cardamom, ginger, and star anise, this is light-bodied and fresher than red mulled wine. While these spices would have been difficult to procure for the long-beard dwarves of the Misty Mountains, considering that Rhûn is across the Rovanion and above Mordor in the east, it would not be impossible. Tolkien briefly mentions other dwarven clans that lived in Rhûn, such as the Stiffbeards, Stonefoot, Iron Fists, and Blacklocks. My headcanon here is that they had infrequent communications with their eastern brethren and likely traded spices and other goods from time to time. This recipe also serves 6 and takes 15 minutes of prep and cook time, plus 20 minutes for the wine to stand. To mull a white wine worthy of hosting the runic dwarven clans in the halls of Khazad-dûm, you'll need 3 1/4 cups of white wine. Pausing real quick, I don't know why they call for this amount, because a standard 750 milliliter bottle is 3.17-ish cups. So we're short by less than 1/10 of a cup. Not sure what that extra 0.08 cups is going to accomplish, but to follow the recipe to the letter, I topped it off with this Sauvignon Blanc from Chile. Same grape, but grown in the same country as Smoking Loon in our red mulled wine instead of New Zealand. Anyways, you'll also need 1 cup of water, 1-inch piece of ginger, peeled and thinly sliced, 2 star anise, 1 cinnamon stick, 3 cardamom pods, bruised, 2 tablespoons of honey, 4 cloves, and 2 strips orange peel studded with 4 cloves. I am uncertain whether Robert means to stud the strips of orange peel with the 4 cloves or use 4 additional cloves. If that is the case, then would it be 4 cloves per orange peel, meaning 12 total cloves? Because the numbers match, I am assuming he means the former, so we'll just stud our 2 strips of orange peel with the previously stated 4 cloves. Step 1. Add the white wine and measured water to a large saucepan. Then add all the remaining ingredients and heat slowly over medium heat until just simmering. Step 2. Remove from the heat and allow to stand for 20 minutes to mull. Step 3. To serve, gently reheat the mulled wine and serve warm. And here it is, the white mulled wine of Moria. Perfect in a little mountain glass from Visky.com. You can use code NICK10 for 10% off. I chose it to represent the mountain pass of Caradhras, while I chose a more jewel-shaped one for the red to kind of give it a ruby vibe. The nose on this one is very forward with anise and orange peel, so if you don't like anise, I'm gonna assume that that smell also translates on the palate, and that you may want to only use like half of a star if the licorice note is going to ruin your day, or skip it altogether. There's just a hint of earthiness hiding behind all that from the cardamom pods though, and perhaps a little gingery bite. So I immediately pick up on the ginger on the palate. It kind of bites the back of your throat a little bit. There's just a hint of chewy sweetness from the honey, but it's not near as sweet as the red wine, oddly enough. It is definitely a bit brighter and more vibrant and has a nice malic acidity. The cardamom is really coming through on the finish once the anise is done doing its thing. I am pleasantly surprised to have the final note be cardamom rather than anise. Despite only having 4 cloves, they do come through because of the orange peel, I think. Orange and clove are kind of synonymous with the holidays for me, and I think that the 2 flavors just work very well together. They complement each other nicely, and I kind of associate one with the other, honestly.
It smells like broth. What is that? It is really tart, if you couldn't tell.
And that one has anise in it.
My least favorite thing. I like the red one better. It doesn't feel as much of a full drink.
I don't really count the Mirish Fire Wine as a mulled white wine because there's enough extra steps with that one where you are diluting it with water. But if we want to, I guess we can throw it into the mix here. Between this and the Imperial mulled wine from the Elder Scrolls cookbook, this may be my favorite mulled white wine that we have sampled on the channel. While the Imperial mulled wine almost had a broth-like quality from the bay leaves and the Imperial spice mix, this doesn't. This is still refreshing and zippy and simultaneously warming because it is, one, warm, and the holiday flavors just kind of give it this warm hug of a profile. I like this a lot. Honestly, I like both of these. These may be the best standard mulled wines that I've made. I would put the red mulled wine of Moria on par with the Hippocras, and probably better than the other 2 just traditional mulled wines, the medieval and Sauron variants from the Feast of Ice and Fire. It's not as spicy or intense as the Hippocras, but it makes up for it with the right balance of citrus and sweetness and still having some spice elements. So honestly, I dig it. I dig both of these. These are definitely going to be recipes I make again. And there you have it, the Mulled Wines of Moria. I do hear the goblins getting anxious nearby, so I think I'm going to have to wrap things up and get going before they spot my light here. Like last week, I'll be sipping these hearty beverages as I watch the Rings of Power tonight, and if you are so inclined, I invite you to join me in doing so from the comforts of your hearth. Consider financially supporting this channel with a channel membership right here on YouTube or over on Patreon like the noble benefactor IKnewThatWasADog. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next beverage in Middle-earth. It's gonna be a good one. Check out my exploration of the Elven Cordial Miravor on the left, or another one of my videos over here on the right. Until next time, cheers my friends!